Hello, Medium fans! Thank you so much for being patient with me the last few weeks as we've dealt with the legal dispute, when we've had a little bit of a tenuous schedule at best, I would say. And I haven't been doing a video a week, but we've been doing one every two at least still, so hopefully that's been enough. Big shout out to all the people who give me support either by subbing on Twitch or through Patreon or just liking and subscribing to all the videos here. I really do appreciate it a bunch, and it helps me keep doing these videos for you. I have a very, very fun list for you today. I'm super excited about it. So what this deck does is it relies on the Kesava combo. What is that? Well, it's this. So how does this combo work? What you're going to want to do is you need to have Dizo's Racket in play first, and then you can use Kesava and Means to an End, and then you play Lifedrinker. Now what that does is it gains you armor but deals you damage. Kesava, however, says that every time you gain life off of the lifesteal that you gain from the Lifedrinker, that you then gain that much armor, which means that you lose that much life. And it just keeps looping like this over and over and over and over, drawing you more and more cards, and you use the Means to an End at the end of this full combo to kill your opponent. Because otherwise what happens, you just draw through your entire deck and kill yourself. But what happens if you do it this way, as you'll see, is that you just constantly gain more and more life. You go from 4 to 8 to 16 to 32, then 64, and the combo will eventually stop itself once you reach maximum amounts of both life and armor at 999, and it'll hover over with the actual Means to an End 25 damage sitting there while your opponent waits for you to finally gain enough life, and then it'll pop and kill your opponent. Alright, so what does the deck look like that's trying to do that combo? I call this deck Righteous Means. So obviously we have to have that 4-card combo that we talked about when we were watching the combo actually go off. You need to have Dizo's Racket, you need to have a Means to an End as a way to kill them at the end of the combo, and then you need a Righteous Intent to get Kesava, and Lifedrinker. So you need those 4 cards are the key parts of your deck. And then the rest of it is all built to kind of go off of that. So we have Hidden Road Smugglers and Corendon Merchants to get all of these out of our market. The Righteous Intent, Lifedrinker, and Means to an End. And that way we have just extra copies of them. If we just played 4 of them in the main deck, we'd only have 4 copies. This way, running this many Smugglers, we actually have 8. I didn't want to go with the full 12 Smugglers because we really only have one piece of the combo that the Winchest Merchants can grab, and I don't think that that's super necessary. We're going to be a little bit less all in on the combo than that. We want to have some survivability as well. And speaking of survivability, that's what our next card does. We have Stonepowder Alchemist. It's here to gain us life. We have some things that do trigger off of that, and to help like alleviate if we're using Dizo's Racket to draw a bunch of cards, it can help buy us time and give us some extra life so that we can draw some more cards off of the Racket. And of course, just in general, like stopping aggro, being able to trade with them. It's a nice little value card. You're probably very familiar with it in a lot of different decks at this point. We have Vara Vengeance Seeker. So Vara is just going to be a great threat for us to beat down our opponent, put pressure on them early, and stop them from really considering what we're doing as far as the combo goes and buy us a bunch of time. So it can gain us a bunch of life, which again is going to run into our Mask of Torment, which I'll get into in a minute. And just stop our opponent from having like any removal for other things that are more important, or just like stopping really aggressive decks so that we have something that can just kind of save our life for a while. A lot of decks that are like super aggressive don't necessarily have a great answer to Vara. Like Permafrost is one of them, but like a Skycrag deck really struggles to deal with like a Vara sitting on the opposite side of the board, and it's a good way to make sure that we have enough time to get the combo off. Throne Warden is a similar thing. It can do 2 different things. A, it can come down and just gain us a bunch of armor and therefore just protect our life total and be a nice big threat. But it can also work with Dizo's Racket, and that can just gain us 4 cards, which is really sick. So Throne Warden can do both of those things at the same time. I like to save the Throne Wardens for when I have Dizo's Racket, but in desperation moves, if you're against a really aggressive deck, you can just put it down and try and stabilize yourself, help pump up your Auric Runehammers and stuff like that. So speaking of, we have Auric Runehammer, which is just going to be a cool little way to combo with a few things. So obviously it's nice with Throne Warden when you can make it a 4/5 and then just keep knocking out opponents' creatures, so it can be kind of multiple removal spells. And we're playing a lot of removal in this deck because ultimately it has some beatdown cards in like Vara and Throne Warden, and we can kind of beat our opponent to death, as you'll see, but it'll also want to have a lot of removal so that we can really be the control kind of combo deck that we ultimately want to be. We really just want to get the combo off, and if we can beat our opponent to death, that's cool, but I'd rather combo. So this is a nice removal spell to help us stall out until we can get that combo together. And when we have it for Dizo's Racket, we can do some cool things. So you can Auric Runehammer with Dizo's Racket and you just draw the card, and it does not kill your Auric Runehammer because you're invulnerable to damage. Dizo's Racket deals damage specifically. That also means that if you have 6 power, you can go Auric Runehammer and then Desecrate, and you no longer have the downside of taking 3 damage. On top of that, you can also, this is magical Christmas land time, but I have done it, and that is have a Dizo's Racket in play and 9 power, and then you just go Auric Runehammer, draw a card, not take any damage, and then play Throne Warden and draw 4 cards without taking any damage and have a 4/5 Auric Runehammer, which is sick. So you can do some really, really cool things with that. How do we get up to 9 power? So I was saying that I had 9 power before and I've done this. Well, Mask of Torment. It's the one card that we're splashing, and that might seem a little bit weird, but this deck does require a lot of power for the combo to go off. You can kind of stage it out a little bit. Dizo's Racket can come down early because most of the time you're not super worried about your opponent having a lot of Relicate or even really caring about Dizo's Racket. I don't think most people are clued into what this can do. And so they're gonna leave Dizo's Racket alone, and not a lot of people are packing a ton of Relicate right now. So you can probably land your Dizo's Racket without too much problems. Same with a Means to an End. Not many people are going to be popping Means to an End right away. They don't really care about it. It's obviously a joke card, so they're going to kind of ignore it, I would say, for the majority of people. Even so, going Righteous Intent to Kesava to Lifedrinker, that on a single turn is going to cost you 11 power. So you're going to need a lot of energy to actually be able to get that going. So you want to have your Mask of Torment online if you can to gain you a bunch of extra power so that you're not really having a problem where you don't have enough to actually combo off. You can obviously Righteous Intent earlier, but if you draw it on the last turn where you need to go like Hidden Road Smuggler, find Righteous Intent, play Kesava, play Lifedrinker, you start running into a lot of power. Like, that's going to cost you 14. So you really want to have those Masks of Torment just to get up to a really high power amount. You can also then use all of your extra power cards that you draw. This is the other half of it. We have a lot of Smugglers, which means we go to our market a lot, but we need a lot of your other cards, right? Like, you don't want to be trading off too many removal spells or like Varas or things like that. You really want to be keeping all of those and just ditching power into your market. Well, if you get a Mask of Torment early, you can use that to get your power and just throw your extra power cards into your market and get all the different pieces that you need. So it's nice that way as well. We have Seek Powers to help with the Mask of Torment splash. We have some Cull decks. Just to round out the deck, we were 2 cards short, and I didn't want any extra Seek Powers or Vara's Favors, so it's a nice way to draw down to specific combo pieces. And so we have a couple of those in there. We have 4 Desecrates, because obviously it's a fantastic removal spell. Same with 4 Slays. 4 Harsh Rules as well. Like we said, we want to be that control list where we can just wipe the board over and over until we're ready to combo off all in one turn. And then we have our power base, which is just a few crests and some sigils. Nothing too much to talk about here. I'm sure that there's some ways to move it around. I like where it's at right now. I haven't had too many problems with it. You might want to go down some of these crests if you're having problems with too much depleted power. I haven't run into those issues yet, but if you are having that, then you can always look at that. We don't need a lot of time. Like, we're only running 4 masks, and we do have the Seek powers, so it's not been a big issue for me. I would say that, if anything, you can probably cut these down because you don't really need these as the splash, and you just have the time sigils, and you can up some regular Justice sigils, or maybe even do some banners if you really feel like it. Sorry, not banners, because we already have 4 seats, so you can run seats instead. After that, the last couple cards that we do have in our market, we obviously have the 3 pieces of the combo, But we do have some weird ones. So we have End of the Story, which is kind of self-explanatory. It's just another way for us to like, oh crap, we're in trouble, panic, reset the game. But we also have Lethrai Lobotomy, which is a strange card, but it makes a lot of sense when Dizo's Racket can ultimately just kill you. So if you end up with Throne Warden in hand, and you've got a Dizo's Racket, but you're at 4 life, you can't play your Throne Warden without killing yourself. So sometimes you want to Lethrai Lobotomy just to remove Dizo's Racket, and be able to continue the game. You can try and find another Racket later once you've gained some more life, or sometimes you get greedy and you play 2 Rackets into play, and then you're just drawing a bunch of cards, but you need to protect your life total later, and you can Lobotomy away one of them, kill an opponent creature, and just kind of try and stabilize your board and not have to worry about losing too much life. So that's the intent of the deck. We're going to run it through the games, and I will see you there in a minute. Again, thank you all so much for liking and subbing to the videos. And again, a big shout out to my sponsor, inkgaming.com, who does really cool custom mouse pads and playmats, and now t-shirts and hoodies, all kinds of really awesome gaming gear. We have our own store in there, and you can get a percentage off by putting in the promo code that we have down below, Ilyon12. So thank you so much for all that support, and I will see you for the games in a moment.